Honestly, I was wondering how many people would still be around, second to last chat. Honestly, proof the XRP community, best community out there. Yeah, love seeing it. Yeah. So, hey everybody, I'm Austin. I'm the CEO and co-founder of OMNI, and I'm going to talk a bit about kind of RLUSD. Why did Ripple launch a stablecoin, and what's actually the strategy there? For those of you who know me, honestly, thank you. Everybody's been super kind and supportive. I've chatted with a ton of people out there, and yeah, honestly, vibes are great. For those of you who don't know me, I originally got involved in 2017, so I was still in university at this point, studying computer science at Harvard, and I just serendipitously met Stefan Thomas, the former CTO of Ripple, and he pitched me on the Interledger network. And so at this point, it was very much like a research and development type stage. And I ended up starting a company and raised some money from some VCs. Actually, Stefan invested, and so did Chris Larson, the chairman of Ripple. And Ripple actually invested as well, which was kind of funny because they bought my company a couple years later because we scaled up the Interledger network. So my team was the core team that actually turned the Interledger network from a protocol idea into an actual network that businesses could depend on. So that's a bit on my history. I was at Ripple for a year and a half. I co-authored a protocol with David Schwartz when I was there. And after that, I left because I wanted to start another company, and that is OMNI. So that's a bit on my background, obviously very tech and engineering heavy. We're not really going to talk about that today, though. We're actually going to talk about strategy. So this is the work that we are doing with RLUSD. So we're going to cover where stablecoins at today, kind of what does the landscape look like, specifically from a competitive analysis perspective. What are the core blockers to expanding adoption of RLUSD, and what are the core growth opportunities that we're really likely going to see traction on in the next couple of years here. So this is a quick snapshot. We're at about $250 billion in terms of the stablecoin supply, which is a crazy big number, right? It is huge, but it's also not if you put it in context of the wider financial system at large. So, JP Morgan, they have about $4 trillion in assets under custody. This is just a fraction of just one of the larger banks that are out there. And these are global networks, So obviously, we still have 10, 100x, 1000x growth that we are likely to see. But already we're seeing some pretty interesting statistics. So, stablecoins already exceeded the volume of Visa and MasterCard last year. So we're already kind of tipping over, those two companies put together are worth over $1 trillion. And XRP, pretty massive at this point, but still, we're looking at $130 billion. So still a fraction of that. So I'm really excited about what's to come. And today we're going to be diving into what is likely to come here and what are the key growth areas that we're likely to see. Cool. So to kick it off, what is RLUSD? Why is Ripple launching a stablecoin? What's this thing for? If you take one thing away from this presentation, and it's that what they're building is a stablecoin purpose-built for institutions. If there's one thing you take away, it should be that. You can turn your brain off, and that you'll get the main message from this presentation. But if you want to talk about where things are going, you can turn your brain back on, and we'll kind of see why they're really well positioned to do this. So these are the three major stablecoins out there today. We have RLUSD, USDC, and Tether. I'll kind of talk about Tether first because it's easier to talk about. This thing's offshore, not regulated like Circle or Ripple, and it kind of has a spotty track record in terms of the accounting and audit history. So are international financial institutions going to be relying on Tether? Probably not. It's actually pretty poorly positioned for that. What they have done really well, to their credit, is they built a really solid business, and they are driving peer-to-peer payments in countries across the world that usually don't have access to dollars at large. So they are doing good work, but I don't really see them as a competitive threat when it comes to the institutional angle here. Circle, on the other hand, is regulated. It's great to see that. They also have a much better track record from the accounting and audits perspective than Tether does. But where have they driven progress so far, primarily? Primarily, it's actually been in DeFi protocols, a lot on Ethereum, actually. So they've really been focused on this developer crowd that is in the Ethereum ecosystem. And they are a US-based company. They're doing really good work. This is kind of where we'll stop on what you can just read online on the surface and start to dig a little in, threading the needle, what's the actual bigger picture here that's happening. So the reason that Ripple is going to be extremely well positioned to drive adoption with institutions for their stablecoin is think about what they've done for the past decade. Everybody thinks about like payments, cross-border payments when they think about Ripple. But like, why have they actually done that for the past 10 years? Is it because that's the end game of what they're trying to do here? They just care about payments? Or is it more of a beachhead strategy? Are they just really developing relationships with the world's leading financial institutions? That's how I'm looking at it. It's like what they've done for 10 years here is develop relationships across the entire global financial system with the world's leading banks, financial services companies, and institutions. And so this is really going to be key to the strategy here. They have these relationships, and it's going to be really hard to play catch up with that. So even though their stablecoin is newer, it's much harder to actually build these relationships than launch a stablecoin in general. As further proof to this, let's think about what they have been spending over $1 billion on recently. Medico, Standard Custody, Hidden Road. What do all these companies have in common? They don't really work on payments. That's not the main use case of these companies. That's not really the primary service that any of these companies are offering. So why did Ripple spend over $1 billion acquiring these companies that is not part of their core business line today? It's because we're entering a new stage of what XRP and like Ripple are really focused on. They pursued a beachhead strategy of developing all these relationships throughout the world with the payments product, but it's time to expand. And that really is reflective of them putting over $1 billion on the table to pull these tools into their product suite and expand and upsell with the existing customer relationships that they have. Cool. So this is a question that I get. I post on Twitter a decent amount, and one of the most common questions I get when I write about these types of things is this even good for XRP? Like, does RLUSD replace the need for XRP? Is this bad? And I don't know, to me it's quite funny. I've also seen like Brad, Monica, and David get asked questions about this. And the answer is no, it's actually extremely beneficial to XRP. Why is that? It's because RLUSD is fundamentally powered by XRP, full stop. It is the engine that powers RLUSD. So any adoption that RLUSD sees is going to actually like drive activity on the underlying XRP ledger network. So fundamentally, they are synergistic. And one thing that's actually like very interesting is RLUSD, they've expanded it to other chains. It's on Ethereum, and more is going to happen in the future. Like I talk with Tether, Circle, and Ripple stablecoin team. I've signed a few NDAs, so I can't like say everything that I know specifically, but like a lot is going to come in the coming months here, and the way that we should be thinking about this expansion of RLUSD really is Ripple expanding their market share and taking it from other chains in general. So like that is kind of how I like see the world playing out here, and how I think everybody should be thinking about the evolution of this part of the industry. Okay, cool. So obviously, we're still pretty early in the industry today. There's a number of blockers. It's still pretty hard to use this technology, and this is the main thing that we're focused on at OMNI. So very simply put, the company that I'm building today exists because it is still really freaking hard to do things on blockchains. Everybody in this room, like we all know. I actually would be very shocked if anybody here did not hold XRP. And anybody actually, if you raise your hand if you do not hold XRP. Oh, interesting. We got to throw him out of here. Yeah. All right. So there's 3 primary dimensions of like complexity inhibiting kind of the growth of these systems at large, and this is what we're focused on at OMNI. So one, there's going to be many chains out there. This is the reality. If you listened to David's talk yesterday, this is actually good because there's fundamental trade-offs when you're designing these things. There are things that the XRP ledger is great at that Ethereum is not, but at the same time, you can do other more experimental things on Ethereum that you can't do on XRP ledger. So ultimately, these are all helping the industry grow, and they're all going to specialize in their own domain. So we have to deal with that reality. David's talked a lot about interoperability, but really it goes beyond that. Like when you load a website, for example, do you think about Amazon Web Services? Do you think about Google Cloud? Do you ever think about moving data between the two? Like, no, that'd be crazy. You wouldn't be on the internet if it required that much like technical sophistication. That's basically where we're at in crypto world today. Like, you have to think about the databases and the data centers running things behind the scenes. And anytime you move across them, you have to like go to the data center and like pick up your stuff. It's like going into your basement, like unplugging your router and like plugging it into a different machine every time you had to load a website. Like, it's really complex to use these systems today, especially when you're working across them. And so wallets, I use cold storage solutions. This one I am curious. Who here uses a cold storage solution okay, yeah. Yeah. Okay, yeah. So we're all crazy people, right? Like setting up like a little device in your basement, like locking it in a box and like taking words and writing them on a piece of paper, splitting it across different like locations. Like that's crazy behavior. We can't expect everybody to do that. It's really cool that you can do that. And we'll always be able to do that because that's just the primitives that we're building on top of. But like my mom, I convinced my parents to pick up some crypto a number of years back. And anytime she has to move it around, she gets terrified. I literally have to fly home and like hang out with my mom and then make the transaction for her because she's terrified. She thinks she'll just like delete it or something. And the reality is most people are this way. And that's fine. That's totally fine. Those of us, honestly, it's kind of to our advantage that it was really hard to use these systems initially because we got in early. Like, we're still really early to the evolution of this industry, and we put in work to kind of like push through the complexity. But we have to make it like far easier for people to just actually like have a wallet. It should feel like just signing in with Google. And there's a pretty clear path to making that happen. Final thing, gas. Like going back to the Google Cloud, Amazon Web Services thing, imagine if you not only had to think about them each time you load a website, you had to have like credits on each of them. And like, oh, I'm going from like Google to Facebook. Now I got to go top up my Google Cloud credits. Like that's where crypto is at today. So all this really, our core thesis here is like, let's push this behind the scenes. Let's make it as easy to use blockchains as it is to use the internet today. So that's really what we're focused on at Omni. And there's a ton of synergies there with Ripple's strategy around their stablecoin. This applies to end users. A lot of this I kind of talked in the like personal sense of like, imagine if you had to go in your basement. But really it applies a lot to businesses as well. There's a ton of engineers employed by these financial institutions across the world who are familiar with JavaScript and Python. What they are not familiar with is how to make a transaction on the XRP ledger. And so if we can just make it much simpler and like give them the tools that they're used to working with, that is how we're going to drive adoption of these tools, both for end users and for institutions across the world. Cool, so here's a quick little snapshot of where we're at today. Already, this actually cracks me up. We're kind of in like beta mode for RLUSD, but already that's a few $100 million in size. But Ripple is clearly like incrementally scaling up adoption of RLUSD. But already, we're seeing like pretty significant adoption in lending protocols and in businesses across the world. Cool, so final little thing that I'll cover here is just like what are the key things that people should look to for like what's gonna grow next primarily. Like I was saying, stage one has been remittances. It's just the most glaring, obvious use case for crypto technologies. Make it easy to pay people internationally. And this has really been the core like bread and butter of RippleNet over the years here. But it's not the end game, not by a mile, actually. If you think about financial institutions in emerging markets, think about how hard it is to build a financial system. Now imagine doing that without something stable like the US dollar. Like, there's a reason why like many of the people across the world are underserved by financial institutions in their local area because it's hard to like actually build stable financial institutions when you don't have something sturdy like a dollar. And so there's a huge opportunity here to scale up really like banking machinery around RLUSD. If financial institutions in Nigeria can just like implement some APIs and give access to the US dollar to their citizens, that is huge. This really can make the difference between like your parents depending on you as they get older or having financial independence. There are many people across the world that just don't have the luxury of stable currency and governments just effectively print away their wealth. And it's terrible, but like that is the reality that we live in today. And something really cool like RLUSD and the like API suite that is built around RLUSD can actually change that for billions of people. So that I think is like one huge thing over the next like year or two to watch get built out. Past that, it's not just about building out tools for inside of institutions. It's about building out tools so that these institutions, when they start implementing these same tools, can just link together seamlessly. So we're going to start seeing like network effects develop around this. We've really already seen this with RippleNet and XRP, but it's going to start happening with a wider suite of financial services, not just payments. And so that is going to be something really exciting to see. And then, I know many people here have their own businesses as well. Think about how complex it is just to like pay vendors sometimes. Like it's, to me, every time somebody asks to get paid over wire, I'm like, oh God, dude, like, all right, I'm gonna pay you like $500 and pay a $25 fee and we're gonna wait 5 days for it. Like anytime people tell me they accept stablecoins, I'm like, thank you. And I just send the link over email and 5 minutes later, they're like, cool, we got the money. You can think about other things at this point. So there's gonna be a lot of like tools for corporations built out around this technology as well. All this to say, kind of like the core thing that we're focused on at Omni is like, make it reasonable for people to benefit from these technologies. Because today, it's really hard to use them. Cool, so that's primarily what we're focused on. There's a lot of different like networks out there that try to pitch themselves as like next generation blockchain, we're deprecating all the other ones. Honestly, a lot of my career has been in the like research and development side of things. I just don't even think that makes sense from a business perspective to do anything like that. You know, I would rather build like complementary software. So like Omni is very complementary to XRP and RLUSD at large because we just make it easier to access these underlying systems. That's kind of how I see the like best opportunity to drive the industry forward at large, and that's what we're focused on. I post on Twitter a decent amount. If you thought this was interesting, I like primarily focus on where's the tech going and like what does that open up from like a strategic analysis perspective. So if you find that type of content interesting, feel free to follow me. But as a final note here, everybody's been super kind. This is the best community in the industry. I want to thank everybody here. Like, yeah, I'm very appreciative of the support. All right. Oh, can we do a selfie actually? Let's do that quick. Thank you, thank you.